Hi, brothers. My name is Doug Draper. I'm a 1992 graduate from the University of Kansas, and I'd like to welcome you to On the Banks. On the Banks is the only fraternity podcast where we meet brothers, share stories, and embrace the shared value of the Phi Gamma Delta fraternity. Today, we have an awesome guest. I'd like to welcome Victor Cui with us today. Victor has over 25 years of sports industry experience. He's recognized as one of the most influential in the world in sports in Asia and globally for having to build one brand. It's a global powerhouse in the last decade. Now, as CEO, he started the company 9 years ago in Singapore. And today the company is valued, if you can believe this, of over $1 billion. He's frequently quoted in media. And his leadership journey actually started with the fraternity back in 1990 at the University of Alberta. So, Victor, can't thank you enough for joining us today on the Banks. How you doing?
Excellent, Doug. No, thank you for the opportunity, and it's always my pleasure to give back to the fraternity.
Yeah, terrific. So, I guess we'll kind of start where we start, which is give us a little history. How you got into sports marketing and everything else? I know you just didn't pop on the blip and all of a sudden manage a multinational corporation like you do. So, tell us about how you got into the industry.
Well, probably like most young men, they dream of working in sports, and that's always something that I'd love to do. I was active in sports back when I was 25 pounds lighter. Okay, 30 pounds lighter.
All right.
And just was always looking for opportunities. My first real big break came in 96 or 97 when I moved to Malaysia and got a chance to work on the Commonwealth Games. So I worked on the Commonwealth Games there in Malaysia. Then from that just led to working on the Australian Olympics, then the World Championships in Athletics in Edmonton 2001. And that was just really the beginning of it. I had a chance after 2001 to go work with Golf Canada out east in Ontario for a little while, and then moved to Singapore to work with ESPN, which was basically my dream job. If you love sports, you want to work in ESPN. And I worked there for 5.5 years or so with ESPN before I launched with my chairman and our largest shareholder, Chatrisitya Tung, and we launched One Championship about 9-10 years ago.
Yeah, that's terrific. And for some of the brothers in our audience that may not be familiar with One Championship, tell us a little bit about what that business is. I know it's the mixed martial arts, but it's a lot more than that. Give us kind of an overview of that.
Well, I'd say that there's sort of a natural duopoly in the world when it comes to major industries. You've got Apple, Samsung, Pepsi, Coke. In martial arts, you've got UFC in the West, and in Asia, you have One Championship. We're broadcast globally to 150 countries around the world. Last year, pre-COVID, we held almost 24 events for the year, broadcast to a global audience of almost about 1.5 billion to 2 billion people. We're usually the top highest rated show in most of our major markets in Asia when we air live. So we're really, really fortunate to have a fantastic product that the fans have really embraced. And what's different in Asia compared to, let's say, out West when it comes to martial arts is a deep-rooted cultural heritage in Asia. And it's not about fight. It's not about being who's the toughest, because people that do martial arts here in Asia, their entire identity and their national pride is connected to it. It could be karate in Japan, taekwondo in Korea, Muay Thai in Thailand, but it's a really important part of their character. And our athletes that participate in the sport look to represent not only themselves, but their martial arts and their country, and they take that responsibility seriously. So our sport and what we do really revolves around the belief of the power of martial arts to make this world a better place. And through martial arts, we want to elevate and showcase heroes that build pride and inspiration for people all around the world.
Yeah. You know, it's funny that you say it's not about the fight. I've saw a couple of your posts on LinkedIn, and there was one, gosh, probably a week or so ago, and it was a picture of two fighters. Both of them were on the ground, and one was consoling the other one because I think he had just won the match. And I think your message was two warriors. Neither one of them speak the same language, but you know, there's you know, the humanity of everything comes out, which speaks volumes to what you just said. That was anyway. I saw that post and thought it was terrific.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite pictures, and you'll see that with our sport, our athletes. The moment that their bout is complete, they will bow down and to the corner, or they will, congratulate their opponent, and it's really a very respectful brotherhood of martial arts, of great artists that coming together that have spent their whole life developing this skill set and this talent, and are looking for someone else at a world-class level to challenge them and bring the best out of each other.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I know one thing that we had talked about when you and I were chatting off air, and I like to just simply say it's that one of the tenets or the mantras that we were talking about was kind of being uncomfortable in the company of greatness. I kind of put those two things together, but when we were talking, it was really about some of the things that you learned when you were at the fraternity and kind of how you took those you know, to heart and really have managed your business and personal career. So I think the uncomfortable, you know, I think people are like, well, what does that mean? It would be great if you could expand upon that. I think that would be a great start.
Yeah, I mean, I think you really touched on it there. The foundation of my leadership, I would say, really started with the fraternity,
Hmm.
um, where you take this group of arrogant 18-year-old men and you put them all together from all walks of life, from different religions, ethnicities, different socioeconomic backgrounds, and you're all together, and somehow you're bonded by this common bond of something else that you want in life. And you slowly in the fraternity discover what that is with each
Hmm.
other, and what this lifelong bond is about. But a lot of my leadership experiences really started with what the fraternity taught me. And the first one that I regularly talk about is actually not uncomfortableness, it's unreasonable, being
Mm.
unreasonable. And the way I say unreasonable is that, many people think of the word unreasonable as in a negative sense, like you're an unreasonable person, Doug. But I look at the word unreasonable as a very positive word. And I'll give you this context. Um, I think anybody that chooses to join the fraternity is an unreasonable man. And why would I say that? Because when I joined the fraternity, almost everybody I spoke to said, why would you do that? You want to join a frat, be a frat boy and party and booze up and blah, 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 all the movie stereotypes. They're like, reasonable friends gave me reasonable advice to say, what do you need to join this fringe organization for? How does that make any sense? Reasonable friends gave the advice, and sound advice, like, you want to pledge, you want to go through all of that. How does initiation, what do you know about this? You don't know any of these people. And but for some reason, because of unreasonableness, you see this other group of people that are want to come together,
Hmm.
and that is the beginning of the journey of being comfortable with a sense of unreasonableness that you understand that reasonable people do not. And that's such a big lesson for me in life, because a lot of the things that you want to do, people have great intentions and they give you reasonable advice that leads you down a reasonable path. And one thing that's very how do I say, Doug? Is like we're very fortunate in North America compared to the rest of the world, in that achieving a reasonable life is within the grasp of most people.
Hmm.
To have a roof over your house, running water, a toilet, food, all these kind of reasonable expectations in life that we accept is achievable in North America. Whereas in other parts of the world, no matter what you do, you'll never escape the level of poverty that they have. You only have to go to look to the ghettos in the Philippines where people rummage through garbage every day for food, or to poverty in Indonesia or Southeast Asia to look at that. And in North America, we're so fortunate to have this reasonable life there for us. You just have to do a couple of things, right? Like not go to jail.
Yeah, that's true.
Stay out of jail. Go to school, get some education, which is available free for you. There's no one stopping you from going. Um, Go to church every once in a while. Whatever your community interaction is, and you can have a great life in North America. You can have a car. You could provide for your family, and that's all reasonable goals. But a lot of times, the things that you want to do that are not the average and on a different path require you to have faith in your unreasonable goal. And that's why I love that word.
Yeah.
It's something that it used to faze me before when people would say be reasonable or you're being unreasonable, and today I look at that as a compliment.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, for sure. And the unreasonableness, right, to have a purpose in life and strive for excellence. Obviously, persistence plays a role in that, and that's one of the things that we talk about at fraternity is nothing in the world can take the place of persistence.
Persistence,
And
absolutely.
yeah, so in your pursuit of excellence, right, not to be too corny on that one, but there's persistence that needs to come in because people are going to tell you stop being unreasonable, but you need to forge forward and give us an example or two of how persistence has played in your journey as you've come to one championship.
Yeah, I think in some of my lowest times of my life, when I thought that everything was going to be a failure, that quote of persistence and that belief that persistence will yield rewards for your labor was one of the things that I drew upon, because the path of anybody's path in life, whether you're an entrepreneur or a corporate person or whatever it is that you do, you're going to face these moments where you have to decide: do I persist with what I want to do, or do I give up? And sometimes giving up is the right choice, and sometimes you have to have faith that your persistence will yield and you're not being foolish.
Right.
And that's very difficult to determine. And I think I get a lot of inspiration from athletes and our world champions, and people that have been so fortunate in my life to be around, who exemplify these characteristics of unreasonable and persistence. And I'll tell you a story about one of our world champions, um, Ongla Angsang. He is a world champion with one championship from Burma, and he was a refugee moved to the States. And when he fought for his world championship title, it was back in his hometown where he defended his title in Myanmar. And the nation, when I say the nation, came out to watch him compete. Buses were stopped. There was tens of thousands of people at the stadium that couldn't get in. And it was insane. They had all come to watch this hero of theirs become a world champion and defend his title. Because as you can imagine, there's not a lot of world champions coming out of Myanmar in any sport.
Right.
And this was one of their own. And the pressure of the nation on him. And after the fight, after the bout, which he won, I went up to congratulate him. And the first thing that he said to me, and you have to imagine this, imagine the weight on this man's shoulder of the entire nation. And the first thing that he says to me is, I'm sorry, Mr. Cui. I should have done better. I made some mistakes. He won, okay? He won.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he apologized. He had the presence of mind. Like, if I won anything, I'd be jumping over like, yeah. He was calm and gathered, and he came to me. It's like, I'm sorry, I should have done better. I'm going to be better next time. And I walked away thinking about, that is why he is world champion. Because even at the precipice of victory, even with the entire nation and a stadium of 20,000 people chanting his name, his first thought is, how do I persist to become better?
Mhm.
How do I become better? And that in itself is an unreasonable thought, because
Yeah.
99.9% of reasonable men would celebrate. They'd go out and celebrate and they'd party. But
Yeah.
this was a guy, and that's really the kind of traits that separate great men like that. That's a world champion,
Mhm.
because they think differently.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The another thing that we spoke about, which I think this is phenomenal, because if you just think about it in its purest sense, the statement is humbling to me, because I've had some personal experiences with this as well. But the second part of that, which is in the company of greatness, that sometimes you just don't know the group of people you're with, what their potential is, what they're capable of doing, and the greatness that they can bring to the world in their lives. And I know you had mentioned that when we were talking. So you have the unreasonable in the company of greatness. So tell us a little bit about what that means when you use that term.
Well, I think back to my active days in the fraternity, and you look around, and that was maybe the last time in my life that I was with people that had amazing potential. And everyone's gone to do their own thing of their own level of greatness of that they set for themselves. But the crazy thing is, when you're in the fraternity and at 18 years old, you don't know what people's journey is going to be yet. You only know that you've come together because there's deep down inside you, you want to learn from others around you, and you want to be a part of an organization that
Mm,
demands a different standard for its membership, demands a higher level of values of integrity, and holds you to it. Your colleagues hold you to it, your peers hold you to it, your brothers hold you to it. And in the fraternity, you around all these people, and that um, you're building a foundation that is unmatched, in my experience, in your later years of professional relationships, because you meet people, later in life, and they become good colleagues, good coworkers, or good friends, and you know them. But in the fraternity, you've just got this decade after decade that builds on it of a relationship back in the day when you were nothing and you were still trying to figure it out. And this brother that you studied with and helped him pass an exam is now the CEO of a large nonprofit organization, or the brother who walked through the door in tears and didn't have anyone to talk to because he just broke up with his girlfriend, is now the biggest CEO banker that you'd ever have a chance to talk to. And all these things are such an important part of building relationships that the fraternity gives you. And I always say, when I meet the actives in the fraternity, I'm like, you really have no idea. You don't know that this guy that is vomiting in your toilet,
yeah,
what he's gonna be, you know?
yeah. So in that instance, who was that guy? I don't know if you could drop names or not, but
No name dropping, but I would say that in my pledge class, I'm by far the dumbest. So I was lucky to be in that group.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, the whole in company of greatness is such a important term. I actually have a son that's in the fraternity right now, and we were chit chatting the other day, and he's like, well, all these successful people that were in your pledge class or in your chapter, what did they major in? What were they doing? And I'm like, I think Spanish and some other majors. And I'm like, listen, just enjoy your time. Don't wish it away. Embrace the brotherhood of the chapter, and everything will be fine. And then turn on the persistence, and like you said, have that unreasonable nature, and things will work out. So,
Yeah, and
so
and the fraternity teaches you to have that growth mindset, right? To be open to the potential of somebody else. Like my grandfather always used to say, even best friends were strangers at one point. And that is literally what the fraternity is. You
mhm.
walk in on the first day and you look at this room of 50, 70, 100 people, and you're just like, I will not be friends with any of you. Like, who are you? You know,
Right.
you're looking at everybody like, who are these people? They're just absolute strangers. And and they end up, you know, being lifelong friends.
Yeah.
And it's such a unique experience because you don't get a chance to do that anywhere else in life. The other part that where I did was when I joined the Navy Reserves, and that I would say that experience was very close to the fraternity. And, you know, there's a lot of similarities
Hmm.
in boot camp and initiations.
Yeah. For, for sure. Well, you made a comment a minute ago, which there's a couple of quotes I wanted to, ask you to kind of elaborate on. I'm going to read it here because I want to, make sure I get it. But you said, when I walk into a room, I'm almost always not the smartest person in there, and you made mention to it. So, what do you mean by that? And how does some of the traits in the fraternity have helped you overcome that? So, elaborate a little bit.
I think when you're around other leaders, you really learn to appreciate how talented people are and different skill set, whether it's playing hockey or cooking MNDs or like just other people that open your eyes where you thought that maybe you excelled in one area. You suddenly realize, wow, I'm at the bottom of the pile. And generally in my life, you know, whatever I was doing, whether it was sports or academics, I was never the naturally most smartest. I never
Mhm.
got the highest grades. I was never the fastest runner. I was never the most talented. You know, I didn't make any money off of these looks. This didn't like there was nothing there that I had. And
Right.
the biggest strength that um, that I developed was just I decided that if I didn't have this talent, then I would have to outwork everybody that was there. And if the coach said do 5 laps, I'd do 8. If I thought that, you know, you had to study 2 hours for something, I'd study 5
Mm.
and just count on me putting in the extra time to bank for my, you know, make up for my weaknesses. But
Right.
also that it also put me in the mindset that when I'm around other people, that I am there to learn. I'm like, well, what is there for me? Of course, I want to give, but what is there also for me to absorb and learn from others, as opposed to thinking I'm here to spread my knowledge and teach
Yeah.
everybody because I'm the smartest in the room.
Yeah. So I would say that you're a humble hustler, right? You got to get out there and hustle to stand out. Another one that I like that you would indicate, it says creating new value rather than compete for value, or excuse me, creating new value rather than competing for value created by others. Um, Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, let me bring it back to the fraternity, to something that's relatable for us. And if you look at pledging and Pledge Week and Rush Week, you know, that actually is the sentiment of Rush Week. You have to show that all these people, all these clubs and organization wants everybody to join them, right?
Mm.
They're all delivering some form of value. But the fraternity has this other obstacle. One, it's an organization of only men, you know, so there's 50% of the population gone. It has all these preconceived prejudices that people have of who joins a fraternity and what a fraternity is about. You know, if you say you want to join the chess club, nobody questions why you're joining the chess club or what or whatever it might be. And the fraternity, and when you are in charge of Rush or looking to replace yourself as an active, you have to show what is this extra value that you're bringing to the table and how to deliver that to people. And the great thing about it is the value that people get from the fraternity is not the same for everyone. It is such a fluid organization that it allows people to find their own path of what it is that they're looking for that value. But what happens is you get a big brother, you get somebody else that points you in the direction that you want and is able to support you. So I think you know, if you can convince a random stranger to join your fraternity, you could probably sell anything, you know. it's
Yeah.
it's an early great skill set to have at 18 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Transferable to everything in life without question.
Absolutely.
Without question. So I have two more questions for you. One is kind of flipping back to your business. Like, tell the audience, like, what is your greatest business accomplishment, or maybe a better way to ask that is, what are you most proud of as you've developed your professional and business career?
Oh, I've been so,
That's called a gotcha question, by the way,
yeah.
Victor.
I've been so lucky in my life to be around so many great people that have given me opportunities and have helped me along the way. Just really, really lucky. And I'd say my what I'm most proud of is that the people that I work with and the people that I got to join the company love the mission that we're on with One Championship to make this world a better place. And they're a part of it and they've contributed. And when I'm in meetings and I look around and I just think the same feeling that I used to get in the fraternity, where I look around, I'm like, how did I get so lucky to be in this room with this many talented people? Like, what did I do that put me here at this table with all these other guys? And I'm continually just amazed at that when we have meetings and I listen to the insights and the arguments and the discussions that we have from people of that are all part of the company. And I think there's a lot to be said about that, because greatness wants to be in the company of greatness, and people want to be around other talented people. So I believe that
Hmm.
that kind of feeds on itself with our organization. So if I were to identify that one singular thing, I'd say that it's really a company of amazing people that I get a chance to work with every day.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so here's the last one. This is an easy one, right? This is, you can pontificate on this. So rewind, you're sitting here right now and you look over and you see your 19-year-old self, your 19-year-old FIGAM self, knowing what you've known and everything else with the fraternity. What advice would you give yourself? There's 19-year-old Victor about ready to start his journey in life, starting with the fraternity. What advice do you give?
You know, I I think about that often, and the last time I thought about it was when I went to go back to the chapter a few months or maybe a year ago
Mm-hmm.
to talk to the active chapter. I'm like, if I was sitting there and some old fart came into the room who's a grad, and he's like says, oh, I'm here to talk, and you're like, okay, well, what would you really want to say? And beyond some great generic inspirational stuff of like, oh, do good or challenge yourself, and really
Right.
what would you want? And I spent a lot of time thinking about it because it was very, very difficult. And the one thing that I came to that related to me personally that I would tell myself and what I shared with the chapter is that to make bigger efforts to know in some capacity every single brother in that chapter. Because at some point, and it's natural, but at some point, I closed my circle even within the chapter to my pledge class and maybe the pledge class above me and below, to a smaller circle. I was intimidated by the older grads. I didn't reach out to talk to them or ask for advice, or I thought, oh, they wouldn't have any time for me, or why would they want to give me advice? And um, and I missed out on that. I would have loved to have had more coffee sessions, because I know now, had I had the confidence to go up to any fourth year brother and say, could we go for coffee, they would have gladly done it. They would have been happy to be asked by an undergrad or a first year guy for just looking for advice. And I was uh, it takes a while, when you're 18 years old, 19 years old, to find your lane of confidence. So naturally, you stick with people that do the things that you do, or your pledge class, when you're in your comfort zone. And it maybe wasn't until my my fifth year in university that I realized that I didn't I didn't take advantage of all these people that were around me that wanted to give me the advice. And yeah, that's probably what I tell myself. Like, don't be chicken. Go ahead, go talk to someone.
Yeah, that's great. Victor, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Your insight, the way that you've presented yourself on this interview is absolutely genuine. So I know that you're passionate about the fraternity, and I know a lot of people pull you in a lot of directions. So I just want to personally thank you for spending the time to talk about your experience with the fraternity and share your knowledge. So thank you again for joining us.
No, really, thank you for the opportunity, and I really appreciate it. And the fraternity has been such a big part of my life and of my friendships, and I'm eternally grateful for everything.
Yeah, great. And I'd like to thank everybody that was listening to us today. We're going to have a lot more episodes of On the Banks, where we'll meet some amazing brothers, hear some terrific stories, and continue down this journey together. So until we meet again on the Banks, just want to let you know, mighty proud to be a Fiji.